Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with my Halloween 5. Uh, I want to do a retrospective or review because I've done a review of it, but I'm going to talk about it a bit because I haven't talked about Halloween 5 in what feels like forever. Um, some people like this movie, some people don't. I like the movie. Um, but I'm also going to talk about the movie I in a lot of different ways. I'm going to talk about the characters of this movie too. Um, I think it's important to state that Halloween Five's plot, this possession angle, doesn't start in Halloween 5. It starts in the previous movie in Halloween 4. The previous two writer and directors, Alan B. McElroy and um, the director, Dwight Little, um, they came up with an ending that saw where Michael Myers' niece, Jamie Lloyd, played by Danielle Harris, when she was obviously she was a child at this time, and we never saw a kid really touch Michael's hand or anything, but this kid does. This kid takes Jamie Lloyd takes her hand and touches Michael's, which is odd. And what this starts is a possession angle. I mean, the possession angle does not, again, like I've said, it doesn't start in 5, it starts in 4. And by the end of 4, what you see is Michael Myers' blow is shot into a mine shaft, which looks more like a graveyard, which I think it was in a sort of a graveyard. Uh, and it and then you see back at the Carruthers house, you see somebody put on a mask, you hear breathing, you see scissors being grabbed. And then Jamie Lloyd stabs her stepmother in the shoulder with the scissors. Now her stepmother lives, going off of Halloween 5. So here's where your possession angle starts. By the end of the movie, you see Jamie Lloyd standing at the top of the steps. Loomis is screaming no. Jamie Lloyd's in her clown costume, just like her uncle was all those years ago. You have the illusion that Jamie Lloyd is going to be your next killer. Now, would that have been a hell of a path to take? Yes, it very much would have. Now, I will state that if they would have went this route, I don't think Jamie Lloyd would have been in a clown costume. I also don't think Jamie Lloyd would have donned the overalls and the black mask, or sorry, the white mask that Michael wore. I think we would have saw a very different type of style costume for Jamie Lloyd. I don't know what that would have been personally. Um, what I would have liked to see, because again, this is at the tail end of the 80s. 89. Face paint is still a happening thing. I mean, I was watching wrestling at the time. Sting, the Road Warriors, fucking Demolition. Anybody, they were all wearing face paint. So face paint was a big deal in the late 80s and the 90s, and the early to early 90s, I should say. I remember getting face paint too. I remember getting face painted uh, for my Dracula costume. I remember my mother putting on the pale white paint on my face. um, Memories, right? so now, so I could more see them sort of maybe having her dress like the Grim Reaper to a degree, where she's wearing this black sort of shawl, if you will, like, and she wouldn't be carrying a sickle, but she'd be carrying a butcher knife, and she's got this white face paint on. Again, I don't know how it would have looked, but it'd have been interesting. Um, so the first real thing I talked about was the possession angle. That started in 4. The first real controversial thing to happen in Halloween 5 was probably Rachel's death. Um, no, not the hermit's death. Though, you know, could I see a lonely old hermit, reviving somebody who they don't know who it is? I think that's all that is. I think you have somebody who just, because when he found Michael, he's like, blood. Like, he didn't understand where the blood had come from. He didn't understand why the man was shot. Um, this the lonely old hermit is somebody who has no television, no newspaper access. They're not looking, they're not aware of what's been going on. And so he just sees this man who's been shot. He feels probably wrongfully, and he decides to patch up Michael's wounds, which is a big mistake. Michael Myers kills him in 1989, the following year. Shouldn't have fixed him up. So is that the most controversial? You actually see Michael's face very early in this movie, which was interesting. I was not expecting to see Michael's face again in this movie. We hadn't seen Michael Myers' actual face since the original film. I get that's what they're going for. And again, this movie was rushed. I do want to specify that. It did not have the same writer and director. The writer and director are totally different. So let's get into the most controversial moment, Rachel Carruthers' death. Do I mind her character dying? No. But I also think that, they wanted to jam the scissors down her throat. She didn't want to do that. I can understand. It's not that her character dies. It's the way her character dies. I don't mind her character being stalked by Michael. But this is only a year later, and it's something the character in the movie, the way they shoot it, and the way they tell a story, is sort of expecting him to come back. I would have shot this, I would have wrote this entirely different. Why, if you're going to kill Rachel Carruthers off, because, and I want to be clear, I don't feel they're killing the character off just because it's not their character. Because that would make no sense, because the character you're putting over is Jamie Lloyd, and that's not your character either. That character's from the previous movie. Now, you could say, well, Tina gets more screen time. Yes, she does, and I'm going to get into that here in a bit. But the person who's going over even more, because they went over in the previous movie too, is Jamie Lloyd, is Danielle Harris's character. I'll get into that here in a minute. I would have, when she tells Loomis about why does she feel so, bad about potentially leaving Jamie, now she chooses to stay without telling anybody she was going to stay. I would have had, yes, Michael stalking her, but he waits to kill her. He finds a way to get in the trunk of her car, and she goes out to where they shot him or something, and that's where he would have killed her. Like, he gets out of the trunk of her, or maybe he would have been anticipating her to show up there. I think they're just, them killing her in Jamie's room, everything just screamed it was too obvious. And she herself was paranoid that somebody was watching her. So I think that all those things, and then her character to be dismissive a year later, it really, a lot of people feel that should have been Tina's death, that she should have got the Tina's death treatment, where she throws herself in front of Jamie. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I do think what Halloween 5 gets into, though, to a large degree, probably more so than any other Halloween prior to it, is victimization. And what I mean by that is, to get into Danielle Harris's character in this movie, her character is mute. She doesn't say anything, yet she has a psychic link to the killer. She is still trying to recover from what she did to her stepmother. Now, she didn't kill her stepmother, so that's an important step. Because if you have her kill her stepmother, there's no redeem here. Um, there's no redeeming quality. So she doesn't kill her stepmother in 4, and here we have a character who can't talk, has a psychic link to the killer, and is witnessing the killer wake up. And I think what the opening really tells you when she's witnessing him kill the man, the homeless man, or the hobo, if you will, um, is not only can Jamie Lloyd sense what Michael Myers is doing, Michael Myers can sense what Jamie Lloyd is going through. Because I think the possession is sort of double-ended. That Michael, whatever sort of evil is inside of Jamie, whatever's left of it, he wants it back because it belongs to him. It's sort of Count Patofe-ish in a way. I've talked about before how Halloween 5 is channeling Dan Curtis here, and Dan Curtis is still alive at this point in 1989. It sort of feels that way, that Halloween is channeling Dark Shadows in every way. And I like that aspect because it gives a very sort of supernatural, you already got the possession angle, now you have the character of mute. I do think, because no character was necessarily mute in Dark Shadows, at least not without magical powers. Uh, Angelique silences Ben Stokes, right? The mute angle, I don't know if somebody just came up with it in a writer's, we'll just make the character mute. But I sort of wonder if they got this from the Western, the Snow Western, The Great Silence. In that movie, the main protagonist is mute. So Jamie Lloyd's character is mute, as I've talked about here. And her character is going to make this and she tries to prevent Rachel's death, even though when Rachel dies, she goes into this seizure, sort of, and she knows that Rachel is most likely dead. She's at least wondering if Rachel is somehow alive still while she's laying there in bed. Then, because when she sees Rachel's body, she says Rachel. She's like saddened that her worst fears are confirmed. Everybody is basically being killed off, and she feels like she can do nothing. Loomis suspects she knows where he is, and he says, "Why are you protecting him?" I think what you're really seeing too is how evil the evil inside Michael Myers is, because this evil is almost preventing her from talking. That's sort of the greatest thing about 5. You're watching a character go through this little hell of torment. She's drawing things to tell them, but she can't physically speak to tell them where he is, or where he is exactly. And you're watching this sort of horror unfold. I think that's one of the best elements of 5, really, outside of the stalking. The stalking in this movie by Michael Myers is really fucking creepy. The way Rachel gets stalked and killed. Again, I don't love the way they kill her, but I appreciate the stalking about it too. Tina. Now, a lot of people make a big deal about Tina Williams, the character of her, because let's knock some things out. One, the character of Tina is no virgin, so we know the question becomes, is she a main character? No, she's never meant to be either. Again, I've talked about how Halloween 5 deals with victimization. Okay, you've watched the homeless man be killed. In every way, we're powerless to stop to me, the writers and directors are trying to make you feel as powerless as an audience as possible. But they're also showing you how Michael is become so brutal and how evil he is to get the rest of his evil back. He's sort of trying to prove hey, I'm still the guy here. not this little girl, not my niece. Um, and Tina Williams, who the character's not a virgin, she's very, she's a doubting Thomas even more so than what Rachel was, because Rachel, though she had the experience of Michael Myers, Tina did not. So Tina, tells Loomis, "Why you fill that girl's head with all that boogeyman stuff? It's just wrong. It's creepy." She's trying to, along with Rachel, present to Jamie that it's okay to live a normal life. But she's also a very goofy character too, which pisses a lot of people off, and I understand that. But Halloween 5 is also a very dark movie. Now 6 is even darker, and I love 6. Um, that you don't only have Tina, you have the two goofy cops. And I get that's, they're trying to give some comic relief in this movie. I get that. I feel if you're going to have the cops be goofy, you don't need Tina. Not literally, you don't need Tina to be this goofy character. Um, Again, though, Halloween 5 was rushed. I do love a lot of the things they do with Tina. For example, Tina's boyfriend Michael, and that's the character's name, and it's done on purpose too, has a very fast car that he values more than his girlfriend. And well, they're in front of where Jamie is staying, and she's with her. Tina's with her friend, and Michael pulls up after they scream his name. He says, "What?" And she goes, "Well," Tina says, "Well, we can go see Jamie later, right?" And Michael seems annoyed with this, like, I don't really care about this little girl. And you can tell Tina does. Later on, much later on, Michael meets his maker, and his name is Michael Myers. Michael gets killed by Michael. So, and no one sees this, and Michael puts the hood up on the car. He switches mask from the pale white mask to the brute mask, because the person who gives the person who gives Michael the brute mask is Tina. So Michael is wearing the brute mask, Michael Myers. Sorry, I don't want to confuse anybody. So Tina comes out of Rachel's house later, dressed as a prostitute. uh, so Michael unlocks the car for her. She goes, "What a gentleman." She gets in the car, and she gives him a kiss, and she says, "How creepy." And then he speeds away as he's giving this evil look at her. And Tina, the character Tina, does something very interesting. She says, "Really, Michael, the silent treatment? What did I do now? Is it because I want to see Jamie?" This never gets enough credit, in my view. Because what this tells me as a viewer is this conversation is not the first one. It's happened before. Look, couples, married or not, often fight. And they often fight about similar things, about the same thing they've already had a discussion about prior. They often, okay, we don't know how many times they've had this fight or argument or disagreement, or how many times he's given her the silent treatment. But she says, "Really, the silent treatment?" Again, her saying that lets you know this isn't the first time. And I think that doesn't get said enough, because it's letting you know, oh my God, no, yes, they had this argument before, but Tina really believes that she's in the car with her boyfriend, who is not her boyfriend. It's Bob Sims times fucking 1,000, because it or Linda Vanderklog turns around to make a phone call and gets strangled. Well, if she hadn't, she could have maybe jumped over the bed and maybe got past it. And if she knew that was Michael, not that she does, maybe if the she gets the thing off and somehow gets away from him, she could have ran out the room and tried to get out the house. There's no getting out the moving car. If you do, it's going to hurt like hell. She is stuck in the car with the most brutal mass murder in history. And it's just terrifying to think about because you're thinking, oh my God, is he going to kill her in this car? What's he going to do? You don't know what's going to happen next. You're sort of, and you have Jamie Lloyd who just screamed her lungs off for the first time, who finally, is speaking in a sense, finally getting words out of her. Cookie woman, we're getting Jamie speaking. We're getting that innocence coming back to her in that same scene. And finally, her first full official words were Tina when Tina gets rescued. Um, is the character worth it to watch the movie? Yes, but I also walk away knowing that Tina was never meant to be a main character. You know Tina's going to die. Number one, she's not a virgin. And two, more importantly, this is not the first character, and neither is Rachel, to get stalked and killed. I mean, when you go back to the original, Annie Brackett is stalked and killed. Linda Vanderklog is stalked and killed. A part of sort of the surviving and being a victim of Michael often depends on a lot of things. Yeah, virgin, yeah, but luck too. It's the situation you put yourself in. Annie and Linda did not put themselves in the best situations with Michael. Laurie Strode didn't necessarily either. She was just really lucky to survive it. And Michael in 1978 was a very clumsy killer. Here, he's not. He's not quite the clumsy killer he once was. He's become such a professional doing so from a fictional sense. I do think the biggest flaw of the film isn't necessarily Tina. It's okay, you told me all this story to have her say Tina's name, and Tina just dismisses her. I think that's where a lot of people, because what you're seeing happen is you're having Tina break Jamie Lloyd's heart by leaving again. You know, that's probably, if Jamie could have talked earlier, it probably saves Rachel Carruthers' life. Um, I think that's probably why a lot of people would rather see Rachel in this situation and not Tina. Rachel would have listened. Um, and that's probably the biggest issue people have. I do and I don't have this issue because again, the difference is there's always a character difference. Tina isn't meant to be Rachel Carruthers, and she isn't Rachel Carruthers. Though I understand the frustration of this, and I don't disagree with it. How are, I guess I'd ask how you could have always made Michael's boy. You could have made Michael a lot nicer, but maybe he didn't necessarily want to be around Jamie all the time. But then again, that gives way to a lot of other errors too. Michael being Tina's boyfriend makes sense. Michael being Rachel's boyfriend would have made no sense. Um, because again, Rachel's still a virgin a year later. And again, that's sort of what's shocking too. About five, they shock you with the biggest main character death since the off-camera death of Laurie Strode, really. And really, five. Again, I don't think the reason they kill off Rachel Carruthers is because that's not their character. Neither is Jamie Lloyd. Again, this is a new writer, a new director in Halloween 5. It's not the same people. I think they put a lot of faith in the character of Rachel Carruthers, not just Rachel Carruthers, but obviously Jamie Lloyd, Danielle Harris, but also the character of Tina Williams. But again, Tina's not a main character. Tina's a character where you see this throughout Halloween 5. You see Rachel be stalked and killed. You see the police officers be killed. You see Tina's friends be stalked and killed in the barn. Everything in 5 and a lot of Halloween movies is about the difference between who's a victim and who's a survivor. And really, 5 especially, because we're seeing how easy it is for Michael to stalk and then ultimately kill one of the people he's intending to stalk. But we also see how people tend to survive too. In the original, Laurie Strode survived a very clumsy killer in the original Michael Myers. In Halloween 2, to give a better example, though Michael is a more efficient killer, but a lot Laurie Strode gets even more luckier breaks in Halloween 2. Yes, Michael's been going through the hospital, but the elevator shuts on time on Michael. Um, Laurie Strode runs into Loomis, and then Loomis handing her the gun, her shooting Michael in the eyes. All that's luck. I mean, as much as John's original Halloween dealt in fate, there was also a bit of luck involved because just because it's your fate to necessarily for Michael to stalk you, it's not necessarily your fate to die by his hands. Um, okay, Rachel. It wasn't Rachel's fate in 4, right? Okay, it's Rachel's fate in 5. It's Tina's fate in 5. It's the two goofy cops' fate in 5. It's Tina's two friends' fate. It's Tina's boyfriend's fate. It's all their fates to die, yet it's Jamie Lloyd's fate to live somehow. And it's really a hell of a story. By the end, yes, Jamie Lloyd is no longer possessed. There's a character called the Man in Black who's introduced in this movie, when I first saw this movie, I thought this was the devil. It wasn't. Or who was this guy? You saw the this is where the thorn mark is first introduced, by the way. Halloween 5, not Halloween 6. um he shoots up the jail scene, killing the cops. There's an alternate scene to this, if it's on YouTube, I'll try to find it if it's there. um I'll leave a link in the description box if I find it. If I don't, I apologize. um I've often given this movie a solid 8 out of 10, and I do. There are a lot of flaws to it. The biggest flaw is not the decision to kill Rachel, how they killed Rachel, because it makes no sense for her not to suspect Michael Myers when she's sort of suspecting she's being stalked. By the way, Tina does too. Tina suspects she's being stalked because she feels she's being watched. There's that scene when Tina walks out the house and we see Michael watching her, and she looks back and Michael's gone, and she's like, "What the fuck was that? Why did I feel there's somebody watching my ass?" And she gives that look. She doesn't say it, but she's also dismissive of this too. Again, part of being a victim of Michael is about being a doubting Thomas too. Again, fate and luck tend to go hand in hand in a lot of these films, the way they shoot them. Um, my favorite thing about 5, most of all, is, though we don't see it, is the children's hospital, the children's ward getting attacked. And they think it was Michael. It was crazy. That was so, we don't get to see it, but it's creepy. And then the Michael beating the shit out of that cop before he goes into his house. I didn't love the look of the Myers house, but I mean it's what they had to work with, so I can't shit on them for what they had to work with. You know what I mean? They had to work with that. Um, I will say though too, if there could Tina have been a main character, sure, but you got to make changes to that character too. You can't keep the character. You can't make the character a non-virgin and then not kill the character off. It's just at this time it was just like a rule. It's just like if you weren't a virgin, you were being killed off in the movie. Though with Rachel, we're sort of seeing a breaking of the rules with the sequels because in 4, Rachel's a virgin. In 5, Rachel's still a virgin, but she's getting killed off. It's a hell of a thing to see in a horror movie because It's like, well, wait a second. If you're killing off the virgin, that tells me one thing: no one is safe. And I mean, that's what they're going for, sure. But also, I just think there was a better way to do it. Um, Let me think. I'm trying to think if there's anything. The one thing again, there are things I don't like. I like the stalking inside the barn, but I don't like the stalking outside the house. I wish they could have done that a little better. Um, I love the scene in the woods. That's one of my favorite scenes too. The car chase through the wood in the open field, chasing Danielle Harris. The car scene is really cool. Um, it's one of the last great car scenes we get in the Halloween history. No offense to 2018. Um, because it's done for first person. Um, and it's something, we don't see a ton of later on in the Halloween franchise. We don't see a lot of first person standpoint. We do. It's not that we don't see it. It's just we don't see a lot of it. Usually, when we see it, um, it's brief and it's very quick. Um, I do. If I had to make a change to this movie, Rachel Carruthers maybe would have been away with her parents, but tried to tell her parents to come back to Haddonfield. Maybe have them be killed by Michael there, and that's what starts off Loomis's rant of, see, he's back, he's back. Well, hey, they were a million miles away. You don't know that if that's the case. It could have been, because maybe it looks like an accident. Maybe the way it's done, it doesn't. That's another thing they could have played with this movie, is maybe accidental deaths through Michael Myers somehow. Um, Maybe Michael's more of a smart, efficient killer, though. That's the thing. The tagline of this movie, "This time they're ready." I think that's just the stupidest. That's definitely something I have a problem with this movie. No, they're not. No, they're not. You would think a year later they wouldn't be so dismissive that the killer's back again. So they're not really ready. Now, there's moments in this movie you could say, well, okay, they're ready, like the Myers house when the SWAT team's all around. Yeah, they're ready. But they also leave because the children's clinic gets attacked. So, um, it's just the tagline is weird. It should not have been um, tagline. What should have been the tagline? Again, the revenge of Michael Myers. That was a great tagline. The revenge, evil, the revenge of my, the revenge of Michael Myers was a good tagline, and they should have just kept that tagline throughout, not added a second tagline. If you get what I'm saying. This time they're ready made no sense. And by the way, that was on, like, when you went to rental places, that was on the cover. Fucking, not necessarily the front, but on the back. I went to Kit Kat, my mom's video store, Kit Kat video store. Um, where else? Every other video store that you could go to and find Halloween 5, which it wasn't that hard to do. Any others had that tagline. This time he's like, I asked my mom, I said, Mom, does this make sense? And she goes, no, it doesn't. I remember, because as a kid, I'm thinking, well, wait, how are they ready when everybody's getting massacred? Like, everybody's getting killed. The silliness of slashers are just that. Sometimes they're just silly, or sort of goofy, if you will, because it's like, wait, they're ready. Oh, they're not. Being ready one point in time in the whole movie isn't they're ready. They're ready is like if they have checkpoints outside of town looking for Michael Myers to show up. They're not ready in this movie. Um, They're not ready in Halloween 6 either. But Halloween 6 didn't have that tagline. So um, it's just a goofy tagline that they put on the movie. It didn't belong there. And I could say that as a fan. It didn't. Let me know your thoughts on Halloween 5. Again, I just think sometimes there are characters who aren't meant to be main characters. And that's the thing. You're getting. In previous Halloweens, you would get people stalked and killed. Now, the biggest difference with 5 is that Tina is stalked a lot and then killed way later. Her and her friends are stalked pretty long at a long length. They're probably, I don't know if they're the longest. I guess that would be my question to anybody who's ever watched the movie. Do you feel that they're stalked for too long? That Michael's being too patient? Um, I mean, look, he's looking for the most inopportune time to kill them. That's sort of why in the car, when you finally get, Tina's boyfriend's death and you get that car sequence, you're sort of wondering, oh my God, he's going to kill her in this car. This is fucking terrifying. But he doesn't. He stops for a car. He lets her stop at a gas station for a pack of cigarettes, and then he takes the brute mask off and puts the white mask on. I'm thinking, holy shit! Like that whole sequence was intense. So you wonder what's going to happen now, and then the cops show up, and then he leaves. She takes it as, oh, okay, you just didn't want to stick around as the cops. She still thinks it's her boyfriend. In fact, when she sees her boyfriend's car, she's like, Michael. She feels relieved. Then the lights click on, and she realizes, oh my God, that's not my boyfriend. That's when her realization sets in. And again, a main character, often what happens with characters, whether they're main characters or not, is they often get deceived. Laurie Strode got deceived too. Laurie Strode in the original thought her friends were playing a prank on her. Um, I'd say the big difference too is you can tell Tina's going to die before she dies. And what I mean by that is before the lights click on that car and she's all alone and the kids are coming to save her and there's nobody else. You're thinking, oh shit, she's done for. Like you have that realization at that point. Um, but yeah, if you've never checked out Halloween 5, go check it out. It's an old movie. It's an old movie. Again, the tagline was one of the weirdest things I saw because sometimes you would get more than one tagline in a movie. And I always feel this movie's secondary tagline, well, this time already, I'm thinking, well, that makes no sense. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this review and take care.